The desert is a land of extremes. Extreme heat and extreme dryness. Sudden flash floods and cold nights. Because deserts contain such a harsh environment, many people view them as unforgiving or lifeless. But deserts have their own unique beauty, and once you discover the life hidden beneath the heat waves, you may find yourself craving the quiet and splendor of these dry surroundings. There are two main types of deserts: warm deserts and cold deserts. Warm deserts, like this one in Arizona, get what little moisture they receive in the form of rain in summer and fall, while a cold desert gets much of its moisture in the form of snow in winter. Idaho's deserts are considered cold deserts, and are also called high deserts because they exist at higher altitudes. Deserts cover about 1/5 of the land surface of the world, from the sand and cactus of the Sonoran Desert in Arizona to the cold sagebrush steppes of Idaho. But not all deserts are the same. Some are covered in rocks. Others roll with shifting sand dunes. And still others transform during the wet season to include desert ponds or wetlands. But most of the time, deserts are very dry. Even the wettest desert gets less than 10 inches of moisture each year. This lack of water forces plants and animals to adapt to desert life in some unique ways. Plants that have adapted by altering their physical structure are called xerophytes. Xerophytes, such as cacti, usually have a special way of storing and conserving water. A cactus stores water in its fat stem. Its spines provide shade, and its waxy skin seals in moisture. All of these adaptations make cactus one of the most drought-resistant plants on the planet. Many other desert trees and shrubs have also adapted by reducing the size of their leaves to eliminate transpiration, or the loss of water to the air. And some plants, like sagebrush, also have miniature hairs on their leaves that further help conserve moisture. Another clever type of desert plant is a perennial. Perennials like this long-leaved phlox survive by becoming dormant during dry periods. Then they spring to colorful life when water becomes available. Other examples of perennials that avoid desert drought are bulbs. During the wet season, flowers like these blue camas shoot up from bulbs hidden under the soil. During the dry season, the flowers dry out completely and leave no trace of their bulbs stored safely underground. This striking red Indian paintbrush survives because it's partly parasitic. That means the plant partially depends on another plant for food. Here, the Indian paintbrush entwines around a purple sage, tapping into its roots and stealing nutrients from the larger shrub. Still, another inventive plant has adapted to the dry environment by growing extremely long roots.
They have a huge taproot, so I think that's how they can survive in this harsh environment.
The roots of this Mulford's milk veg are probably 5 feet long, reaching deep down into the arid earth to seek moisture. Now you can see tiny flowers and pea-like fruit, but by midsummer this plant will dry and become dormant, waiting out the harsh weather until it's awakened next spring by the soft desert rains. Wildlife too must adapt to this challenging environment, and desert animals have an additional problem. They are more susceptible to temperature extremes than plants. Fortunately, most desert animals have developed ways to solve heat and water problems. Many animals, especially mammals and reptiles, avoid the heat of midday and only become active at dusk and dawn. These animals are said to be crepuscular. A good example of a crepuscular reptile is the rattlesnake. In the middle of the day, rattlesnakes curl up under cover. They hide in pockets of cool shade, hidden under hot desert rocks. Only in the early mornings or late afternoons will rattlesnakes venture outside. For this reason, humans seldom encounter them. Some desert animals go one step further and only come out in the cool temperatures of the dark night. These animals are said to be nocturnal. A bat is a good example of a nocturnal animal. Bats sleep in cool caves during the day and come out after dark to feed on their favorite meal of insects. Certain desert lizards, like this leopard lizard, are active during the hottest parts of the day. But they combat heat by moving extremely rapidly over hot surfaces and stopping only in cooler islands of shade. Some smaller desert animals burrow below the soil or sand to escape high temperatures of the desert surface. Can you spot this female burrowing owl? She peeks out, then ducks back in, just out of sight. Here biologists have installed an artificial nest site out of plastic pipe and a bucket. This way they can look inside and check on the owl's eggs.
Well, looks like we have a clutch of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 eggs.
Safe and cool below the surface heat. Another burrowing creature is this handsome guy, a Great Basin spadefoot toad. He is specially adapted to live in arid sagebrush regions like those of southern Idaho. In the springtime, spadefoots take advantage of temporary waters such as ponds and irrigation ditches to breed. When the mating season is over, they leave the ponds behind and burrow into the earth to escape the heat. From the air, it's hard to see all the plants and animals we now know live and thrive in the desert below. Up here, the desert looks empty and barren, unless you have the eyesight of one of these. Birds of prey, also called raptors, are some of the desert's most efficient hunters. Eagles, hawks, and falcons survey the land with keen eyes. Their prey, small mammals and ground squirrels, hide in burrows below the desert soil. The biggest of these raptors is the golden eagle. It has a sweeping wingspan that can measure up to 7 feet wide as it soars in search of jackrabbits to feed its young. Its nest is equally large, an untidy cluster of sticks perched high on a rock outcropping overlooking the river below. But more numerous are the prairie falcons, sleek birds with long, sharply pointed wings that slice through the air, a superb flyer. In fact, these aerodynamic birds were the inspiration for the design of the jet airplane. Here in the Snake River Canyon of southern Idaho, prairie falcons are so abundant that competition for nesting sites has modified their natural tendency to defend territory. They've adapted to the raptors' equivalent of apartment life, only defending the area directly horizontal to their nest site and allowing other prairie falcons to nest above and below them on the cliffs. A very unusual occurrence in their world. Other desert birds prefer to stay closer to the ground. These sage grouse live and nest in the sagebrush deserts of southern Idaho. During the mating season, the males wake early and at dawn perform an elaborate mating dance, strutting about and fanning their tails, displaying feathers arranged in a striking pattern of black and white. They challenge each other, creating a plopping noise by inflating a pair of air sacs located on their breasts. This elaborate display is mainly for the benefit of the female grouse, who watch the spectacle from the sidelines, hidden safely beneath the cover of sagebrush. The males are exposed and vulnerable to predators, especially golden eagles, but they appear oblivious to that fact in their frantic desire to win the privilege of breeding. By now, you may have noticed something that many desert animals, birds, and reptiles have in common. It's their coloring. Many desert animals are paler in color than their relatives elsewhere in more moderate environments. Pale colors appear in feathers, scales, skin, and fur. Pale colors on these Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep not only ensure that the animal takes in less heat from the environment, but help to make the animal less visible to predators in the bright desert surroundings. Test yourself. How many sheep do you see in this picture? Even as the camera closes in. Until they move, the bighorns are almost impossible to see. So while some say the desert is an acquired taste, if you look carefully, you may find yourself hooked on its quiet beauty. From bold and showy wildflowers to subtle and resourceful animals, the inhabitants of the desert are many. And while this land of extremes may be a challenging place to live, it is anything but lifeless.